Welcome to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi. I'm a holistic business strategist and startup expert, and I spend a lot of my time in conversation with practitioners, coaches, and healers about the behind the scenes of their businesses. What I started noticing is that some of the most honest, important conversations about building a practice were happening quietly, one-on-one, behind the scenes, and often in isolation. Most practitioners are incredibly skilled at the work they do with their clients, but very few of us were ever taught or trained on how to build a successful startup business. And suddenly we've been left to figure it out on our own. This podcast exists to bring those conversations forward, the dreams, the uncertainty, the highs and lows, the recalibrations, and the messy middle. My hope is that by normalizing these conversations, we can soften the stigma, feel less alone, and start closing the gaps together. Today's guest is Danie Muniz. Danie is the founder of Sacred CEO and a speaker on conscious leadership and self-leadership. She helps women in a leadership transition move from self-awareness to self-leadership so they can create success without losing themselves in the process. Danie, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for showing up and having this conversation with me today.
Thank you, Sophie, for having me and having these conversations. I'm excited to dive in.
Before we look behind the scenes today, can you share with us a little bit more about the work that you do?
Yeah, I created the Sacred CEO kind of framework. And within that, 'cause I've been in business for about, 10 years. And through those 10 years, starting as somebody who just was doing therapy sessions and learning, right, how to help people connect with their subconscious mind, and then moving into astrology and helping people understand who they are through their, natal charts and soul blueprints, and then kind of finding the Akashic records and my own spiritual journey along with that. And just through all of learning all of that, I created this framework that I saw my clients consistently going through. And a lot of that was just phases of starting to reclaim who they are at the soul level, which is where the astrology started to come in, the Akashic records would come in, and it just became even the subconscious, right? Working with the subconscious with hypnotherapy, it just all kind of came together. And this process of becoming a sacred CEO is learning to lead your life and business, because many of the people that I was just around were all business owners. And I know we all have our own blocks. And so it just became very clear to me that they needed some journey or some pathway to get them from where they were to, being that fully embodied self, that very powerful self, and whatever it was that they wanted to do. And so I created this journey that I saw all of my clients start to go through, which I call the inner alchemy method, which is really understanding your inner alchemy, what is happening inside, how you're seeing things, how you're viewing things, and then being able to heal that if that's what's needed to be done. I like to look at it as a soul patterning, right? Like bringing that unconscious belief to light so that you can. And whether it is unconscious belief or whether it's soul contracts, if we get into the more spiritual realm, right? Ancestral imprints that we might have, that kind of, but first, before you even get there, you have to learn how to feel safe in your own body. You have to connect to your own body, get out of your head. And so it just started to right? This process started to be very, very clear to me. And I just started teaching my clients, going through this process. And then I was like, oh, this is a method. I actually had a coach that helped me figure out, she's like, just talk me through it. And I did. And it came out and I was like, oh yeah, we have to do this before we do this. And we have to do this. And it just came through. And so I'm really blessed that I get to work with women primarily who are learning to lead their lives, going from a spiritual seeker into a spiritual leader.
What's the main structure of your business model in terms of is it one-on-one work mostly? Is it group?
Yeah, great question. So for most of the time, and this is one of my biggest challenges as a practitioner, is one-on-one work is absolutely beautiful. And that's where a lot of my time has been, in one-on-one work. But you and I both know, and our listener knows, that there's a point where you can only do so much one-on-one work. You can only help so many people. And so I have probably 3 different times, which is why this has been a challenge for me, is move from a one-on-one model to a group model. And not that I don't think the process works for the group model. I know that just for some reason, that shift has always been a bit of a struggle for me because my clients have always been, they're dealing with personal, intimate, inner world trauma a lot of the time. And so because of that, it's been hard for me, at least personally, and it's probably a belief I have, that it's been hard to transition into the group model. So I do have a group. I have like 3 people in it. So I've never been able to really grow that. And that, I think, is probably my biggest frustration, is I would really love to grow that into, because then it takes time off of me. And as I know, and our listener knows, when we're in groups together, whether it's in a circle, whether it's in a retreat, the connections and the bonding and the seeing of each other that happens is just really beautiful. And so it's like trying to make that switch. But yeah, primarily my business model, to answer your question, is one-on-one and a little bit of group.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is something, of course, that is very common. I hear all the time. I've experienced myself of playing around with the nuances of, when you're someone that's building, as you know, a mission-driven practice, a mission-driven business, the quality of the work is so important. Mm-hmm. We're not willing to compromise on the quality. Although then when it comes down to the actual business model and the structure of the business model, that's where it can get kind of tricky. And it's not black and white, because it's like, yeah, but there are limits to that. And what are the realities of that? And I really crave doing something different so I could, have a more dynamic business, and it's not so dependent on my time, one-on-one. Right. But what about the quality of my work? Would it still work if it's like this? And yeah, I mean, this is so real for us.
I hear that a lot from practitioners, in the sense of they'll be and I think you're hitting it like really right nail on the head here, because a lot of business coaches, business strategists, sales experts will tell you have to build a group model. And a lot of practitioners will say, but my work doesn't translate into the group. And so that's always a little bit of a tricky part, because there's aspects that do and aspects that don't. And so it's like, how do we still leverage ourselves without burning ourselves out, and building the businesses and making the impact that we want to make, because we're 100% soul driven. Like, if I don't get to do the work that I do, like I had, a situation come up this past month that really reminded me of why I do the work that I do. And if I continue, to not let that happen, or to not impact the people, it's a huge impact on relationships. And for me, I feel like women and their worth and the things that they do and don't get to do in this life.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's a real thing for us. And it's part of why having these conversations is so important to me right now, because why we talking about those of us in this pocket of the world, mission-driven service providers who are, care about our integrity, care about our authenticity, care about the quality of our work. This is our North Star. This is our life's path. This is an expression of our soul. It's an expression of who we be. Why we do things and why we don't do certain things when it comes to business is different than the rest of the world. People just building business and entrepreneurship of all types is great. It's not to say that there's a better type of entrepreneurship or not, but there are differences. And, for us to be able to have a space to talk about the reality of that is really important, because this stuff matters to us. And if we work with people, sometimes we hire people who aren't as tuned into that. They don't get it. And not that they're wrong or bad for not getting it, but then it's like, well, just do this because that is what makes most sense. But if it doesn't feel aligned for us, if it's not actually aligned with whether it's who we be or what our work stands for or our integrity, like either we're not going to do it, or we're going to really struggle through it, and we might dip our toes in, but we're not going to stay there long enough. And then we waste a lot of time and money and resources and energy. And then our confidence takes a hit and it's confusing. Honestly, it's just really, really confusing at the end of the day because it's like, so yeah, I totally hear everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
When you look ahead to the next 6 to 12 months, what goals do you have for your work and for your business?
I would say the number one goal right now is filling my group program. That is the number one goal, is because that's relieving me. So it's twofold, right? One, it's bringing in more consistent income for me, because it's a year-long program. So there's, right, the consistency there. The second one is moving myself from the one-on-one work into, and not that I would ever get rid of one-on-one work, but where I get to spend more of my energy and attention in the group. And so my number one goal this year is to fill that group, with a minimum. Well, I don't even know if it's like a minimum maximum, but the feeling that I get right now is around 20 women. And so it's like 20 women in that group. That would be my number one priority right now.
What do you feel like you need to do to get to that point of 20 women in your group program? Do you feel like you're guessing?
As far as strategy,
Yeah, like actually,
yeah.
what do you think that you need to do to get to that point?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, there's a million strategies, right? And I think I want to say the number one problem is leads. I want to say the number one problem is not having enough leads, but I know that that's actually probably not the right answer there, because there's a leads problem and there's a messaging problem, right? It's kind of twofold. Is if can I articulate what the program is about so that it attracts the right people, right? I mean, I have, it's not like I don't like have avenues for people to find me, right? I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast. My goal right now is to get speaking a lot more. So I have, like, as far as the strategies to attract leads, I have that in place. The problem I think it is more so in the messaging. Like, I could say, it's like, if I got people in front of me, I can talk to them, I can show them what I do, I can show them the pathway, and I can invite them into my program. Like, I feel like that's not my problem. My struggle is like how to actually say the right things to them to get them onto that call so that I can then have that conversation or do that thing with them. That's where I think my I would say my biggest struggle would be in that messaging part.
Totally. Yeah, this is something, I had this problem for so many years, and part of why I now know how to solve that problem. But for me, what it was like was i- impossible. It used to be impossible for me to message because my work, and it sounds like you fall into the same category, and most of us do. We have so many different certifications. We truly are holistic providers. We have so many lenses that we can talk about how we get to the thing because we're combining so many things. So which version, do we say? We can work with so many different types of people. So how it's impossible actually to uh, write copy, which seems like this is one of those examples of things that's kind of backwards to the rest of the world, where it's like, well, that should be the easy part. Someone can just write your copy for you. And we're like, huh? I wish it can't but it can't. So like, how do we solve this problem of writing it when we're so multifaceted? Our work is so multifaceted, multidimensional. It's not only can it be hard to articulate, but also then we're doing so much, we pull from so many different areas of expertise that create our unique key code, that create the uniqueness of when it comes to business building, the way that I now know and how I teach people is really important, having that unique point of view, but articulating what that is can be not only just a daunting task, but it actually is quite impossible to do it, which is it's crazy making.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Because
crazy making.
you're trying so hard to, I mean, I look at it like in certain rooms I walk in, it's like I feel like I have to filter for that room. And then I walk into a different room and I have to filter for that room. But the problem being that it's still me. And so then if I've filtered for this room and then I have those people in my room, I'm like, wait, I'm filtering, but then these people came through because of this thing that I said I did. And now I'm like, oh, wait. And so now I have this group and I'm trying to, and they're like, wait, I don't like that, but I don't like that. And so it's like, how do you still be you in all the rooms. And it took me a long time to get over the fact that I could walk into certain rooms and say that I would say something like, healer, right? And automatically people would just like run the other way versus other rooms, like everybody and their mother in that room was a healer, right? So it was like, what do I what how do I find, right, like that still language that still portrays who I am and what I do without people immediately rejecting because they don't understand, or people think they know what it is. And so, right, like how do I still do that? And so I think that has been, as much as I want to say it's like a leads problem, it's not. It's how do I still convey that message without filtering for people and still feel like I am in integrity of who I am.
1,000%. This is a classic startup breakdown. And this is like, I'll give you a little bit of like behind the scenes, like info. This is where so many people, including ourselves, but especially like people who we hire and people out there are treating us like we're classic small business owners, where we're like a massage therapist or a CPA, where we fit into a clear box. This was like my big aha in all of my trying to solve this problem for myself. You and I chatted briefly that I do what I do now because I was a multifaceted practitioner, coach, healer for a decade plus, and I had all of these same problems. And I was like, what gives? Like, what am I missing? I'm hiring the coaches. I'm doing the courses. I'm hiring the med ads person. I'm hiring all the people. I'm doing all the things that everyone says, do this and it's going to work. And it never worked. And I would end up feeling more confused because I'd hire someone to be like, you need to focus on this part. And then I'd like focus on that. And I'd rearrange everything and I'd contort things. And I would dive in and they'd say, you need to rewrite your copy based on this. And I would blah, blah, blah. And at the end, nothing would be different. No real traction. Like everything was the same. It was so confusing. Anyway, but this is one of my big aha moment in doing all of my deep diving and all of my searching and all of my, going down the rabbit hole after that was most people are treating us like we're small business owners. Like it's really clear, oh, we're a CPA. Someone's going to come to us because we're a CPA, or we're a massage therapist in a brick and mortar. So someone's going to come to us because we're a massage therapist. We have more in common with a startup founder, like a tech startup founder, than we have with a massage therapist who's working in a brick and mortar. And people be like, how could that be? Well, this is exactly why, because we need to find a way to navigate the startup process, which is very different from small business ownership or just commodity service, where people already know what it is. The product market fit is already there. They know exactly, like, I have this problem. This is the solution. Now I'm just going to type in Google, where is one near me, right? We don't have that. Yet we don't have that. We have to go through this startup phase that no one is talking about and no one is teaching us. So if you think of business, you have your startup phase, you have your growth phase, and you have your maturity phase. Most people are treating us like we're in the growth phase. Oh, well, you just do this. So you need to just start, no, we need to actually navigate the startup phase. And this is what no one's teaching. This is what I discovered. And now I teach people. But everything that you're saying is exactly what is vital for the start phase. It's normal. It's normal for a startup founder. It's right. It's normal, but no one's talking about that. So we're so confused because everyone's treating us like we're fit into one of those clear things. Again, where there's already product market fit, people know they have the problem, they know where to find the solution. Well, we don't have that. So we have to navigate the startup process where we essentially are translating our gifts and our skills and our brilliance and our soul's work into clear market demand so that we can solve the problem, like you're saying. And how do we work that backwards? Because that's the other thing is, we're all a whole bunch of Merlins doing everything backwards. So it's not as simple as the rest of the business world where they're like, oh, just do this. It's like, no, like, first of all, y'all are treating us like you're giving us the wrong distinctions and the wrong things because we're not.
We're trying to make us like them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We're trying. So we have to do it. But also all of us, at least the people that I'm talking to and the people that are my people that I attract and they attract me, is like we often are just working it backwards. We see the North Star. We're super clear on that. And the rest of the business world, that's what is hard. It's like we did the hard part. Like we're so clear on what for everyone else is super hard and they might never get to understanding soul alignment, true purpose, what's your North Star, where are you taking this whole thing? Like that's the easy part for us. Like we have that handled, but now we're like trying to work it backwards. How do we get now to that starting point? So everything that you're saying, kind of jumping ahead, and because I think it's important to acknowledge and articulate is this is a classic breakdown of startup entrepreneurship, which is normal, but no one's telling us that and no one's teaching us that. So it has us floundering and very confused in something that is actually a normal problem. It's just like bringing the wrong sports equipment to a different game. It's like bringing golf gear to a soccer match and trying to play soccer well, or vice versa, showing up on a golf green with soccer stuff. It's like not that golf or soccer is better or worse. It's just like it's the wrong stuff.
Wow. That is so true. I've never thought of it from that lens, but you're 100% right. We have to teach, like, I think a lot of the time it's like, my love will tell me, like, you have to teach people what it is you do in order for them to understand it, to want it. Like they don't know that they want it. Like you have to explain it to them, which is exactly what a startup, you have to prove to people why this is the thing that you absolutely now need in your life that you never knew even existed or needed, right?
Exactly. And so almost every single one of us has that problem and no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you articulated that exactly well. And so yeah, the nuts and bolts of how to do that, of course, that's a longer conversation, but yes, and it is possible. And that's, what I've spent the last, chunk of years of my life studying and then translating for us, because we don't do things the same exact way as people in the tech startup world, but I had to go into that world and study and understand the process and how to build it, because part of how I got to this kind of solving this mystery was because I was living it. So I knew that I was meant to be doing the work that I was doing. All of my peers and my friends and other people that I got certified with and other people in this world that I knew, it's like they're doing the work that they're meant to do. But still the failure rate,
huge,
less than 3% success.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, something's got to give, because I know that we're all meant to be doing this work. And then we look to the world and the greater dynamic and the global economy of mental health crises, suicide rates spiking, addiction rates spiking, all of this stuff. So it's like, okay, we see that. Okay, now we know that we can help address this. Like we are uniquely suited and we've devoted our life paths, our career paths, oftentimes our money, our finances, everything. To so I'm like looking at this, from the inside at the time, being like, something's got to give, because it can't just be I'm wearing a blindfold and, throwing a dart at something that's 500 yards away. And if I get it, I'm going to be successful, because I'm like, we're all meant to be doing this work. So that's, again, this is a very short sum of years of trying to be like, what's missing? Because something's got to give, because this isn't right. That failure rate does not match up with what I know to be true for the work that we're all doing. And so, yeah, and this is part of what I discovered is like, and what I was seeking is, can't there be a way that isn't just a shot in the dark? We're less than 3% success rate. Like that can't be. That can't be for us. And so I just, I went, kept going. And it was something that was my North Star and still is now. But yeah, I mean, and the answer is yes. Like there is a solution and there is a way to get around that. And that is what now I know is true. I know is possible. And now I can finally make sense of it all, because I just couldn't make sense of it all before. And now I can, because yeah, I mean, everything that you said, and now there's, again, all the nuances and how to do that. It's actually not the hard part. And the way I see it is we've all actually already done the hard part. So if we can now find a way to navigate that vital startup phase, where essentially we're seeking to find product market fit, which I call offer market match. A way of saying that, I already said it, we're translating our brilliance and our gift and our soul work into real market demand, like matching it, right? We're not having to change anything. We're just trying to solve the problem that you exactly said, which is, how do I talk about it to the right people to make it work? And this is something that, again, this is such a big thing. So yeah, everything that you're saying, it's so, you articulated it so well in such a way that, yeah. Anything you want to add about that before we continue on?
No, I love that perspective on it and seeing it from that lens. Actually, that doesn't, I guess for me, it doesn't make me feel as wrong or, like, why can't I figure out this business thing? Because, yeah, I'm square peg trying to fit into a round hole.
Exactly. Exactly. We talked a lot about this, just now about a big breakdown. Is anything else felt heavier or harder than it should in your building process of a mission driven, soul led business and practice?
I think, I mean, I guess this still kind of falls into the same realm, but you see people out there who flood and flock to, I'll say it this way, certifications, right? People, I want to get certified. I want to do this. I want to do that. When the actual work, in order to then be able to use that modality or use that tool that you got, is that inner work, right? And that's for all of us, me included. And so I think some of the hard part is like why, like where I feel is like, why is it so much easier to sell a certification than to actually give them what they actually need, which is the inner work, right? And showing them how to actually, and because everybody knows how to do the inner work, but not everybody does the inner work because, right? Like, and so for me, I'm like, wow, like, why is it so, why, like, all these people fled here? And no, I mean, I'm using a certification as an example. That's one of probably many, but like, why is it so easy for people to flood here and not here, right? But then I think, it goes back to our societal ideas of like mental health. Mental health, I mean, we're in 2026 right now. It's probably the most talked about it has ever been since I've been on this earth. And which is super exciting in many ways and also very sad because it had to get to this point that we start talking about it. And so I feel like as things, when we talk about a great awakening of however, when that is, I'm in the lens of it's already started and we're already in it. But as more people, quote unquote, awaken, that means even more people are going to need support. And so it's like really frustrating that, as somebody who's like, I've got your answers, I know how to help you, and not be able for them to find me and me to find them is like that, I think is probably, that is the biggest frustration.
It's this ironic thing of devoting your, like we've already talked about, your life path, your career path, your finances, and so much to being of service to others. And then getting to this point where you're looking up and being like, but where are the people that I'm supposed to help? And how ironic that is.
Mm-hmm.
And confusing, and all of the things that we've already talked about, and backwards. Like that shouldn't be the problem. The part that we already did should be the problem, but that's not for us. It's that other part that then we're looking around. It's like, how can I not find the people I meant to help? And that's my why. That's why I do what I do, to solve that specific problem. But it's one that is, it's so common, and I totally hear you. And it's, unless we solve that problem collectively, individually, of course, but also collectively,
Mm-hmm.
let me say it this way. We need to solve that problem to be able to navigate through this collective global dark night of the soul. Each one of us is uniquely suited and uniquely positioned to nail it with the people that are on this earth that we're meant to be working with. For us, and this has come up with several people on this podcast, sometimes because we are having such breakdowns with the business side and we're so confused and people aren't giving us the information that we need, we can tend to think there's there's a scarcity problem, like, oh, but the clients and they're going to them. Actually, there is still a supply problem. We couldn't even, the demand is so high.
So huge.
The demand for our services and what we do is so high that we still couldn't scratch the surface, those of us. So we think that there might be no, it's actually
Not enough people. Yeah, no, there is
enough of us even to scratch the surface of the demand that there is. We need to start with the square one and getting this sorted out and figured out, because even if we were all thriving and completely thriving in our practices exactly how they were meant to be and exactly the size and working with the exact people. We're still barely scratching the surface. Like we need to, the vision that I get, the image that I get is about, absolutely, you mentioned this already in maybe a little bit of different words, but this collective global dark night of the soul that we are in. It's like, in the past, there have never been this many people going through it at the same time. So it's like there's such a think of like the traffic. It's like classic traffic. You and I were talking about Austin, Texas traffic. It's like classic traffic of the interstate system not being able to handle the demand. So there's wrecks. People are getting out of their car. People are stuck, suffering in this because they can't move forward. It's like that's part of, if we think of a visual and image, that's part of what's going on. We are the way showers. Like we are the path builders, the path pavers. We all have our own group of people that are meant to take our path. We're meant to be way showers and guides to help them get through their dark night of the soul. And it's like us paving our own way so people can start coming out of this massive traffic jam where there's a lot of chaos and suffering because people don't know and da da da. And each one of us has our own unique thing that's like people are like, oh yeah, that's the one I'm supposed to be on. And again, that's kind of like a visual and an image that I see all the time. And again, that's part of my why, because it's necessary. It's necessary for us to be able to come through this global dark night of the soul and decrease the amount of harm that's caused during it, because it's hard. We all know awakening is hard. We're seeing that. It's chaotic, it's confusing, it's difficult. But if we don't solve this problem that we're talking about, we all know that the harm that we could have, decreased, like we weren't able to do that part because we are able to support people and decrease the amount of harm that's caused for them during their awakenings, and lives are being lost, and not just by suicide but also by others hurting others, and it's chaotic, and we know that we can decrease some of that. And yeah, it's hard for us to know that and feel like we're not able to do the work that we're here to do.
Yeah. I mean, people not living their soul's purpose or their soul's calling, to me, is probably one of the biggest whys that I have in my soul purpose is I had to discover that for myself, like in living my life for me and tuning into that. And I think about the people who, not just in you talk about harm, not just in the physical sense, but in that losing themselves, losing their soul, right? Their connection to their soul and their mission and what they're here to do. Because I believe, at least the world that I believe in is everybody has a mission, everybody has a purpose. That's why we're here. And if everybody started to live in that, right? To me, that's huge.
If you could wave a magic wand and have one thing solved or fixed for you in your building process, what would it be?
The messaging. That's to me, that's the simplest.
Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up today?
No, I will say that I have absolutely enjoyed this conversation, and this, I believe the work that you're doing and the work that we all get to do together is probably one of the most important things, even if it feels off, even if it feels awkward, even if it feels like you're failing every single time. Me personally tend to focus on, the one mom that I helped that is going to impact their children and their children's children and so forth. And so my final word to the listener would be to keep going and don't give up.
Danie, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. And for those of you who are listening, if any part of this resonated, you're in the right place, please reach out. I want to hear from you. And if you want to reach Danie directly, the links to her website, her daily practice, and her podcast are in the show notes. Thank you again, Danie. And to everyone else, thank you for listening. And we'll see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.